halfway 2021 already. I mean, I've been busy, but how that happened? Time for an update. By popular demand, a simple video. My top 10 mastering equalizer plugins, why they are my favorites, and what I like them for. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixFest TV. Hope you're having a great day. Before we start, please check the info box down below for my mixing courses on Pro Mix Academy, free plugins, discounts, and special offers. And if you want to support the channel, but most important, if you really want to learn professional mix and mastering, click the join button down here, become a member, and access the already big and always growing library of in-depth mix and mastering courses here on the channel. Full mixes breaks down, start to finish, dedicated mastering courses with hardware and plugin settings, special videos, and much more. Members only exclusive content here on the channel. Let's get to the video. Like I said in the intro, I'm not just gonna throw a list out there. I will tell you why I like each specific plugin and for what I usually use it. But because for the examples, I'm gonna use either my mixes for clients or masters mixes that have been sent, I wanna make this video a little more interesting, and we're gonna hear some before and after mastering examples. When I master for clients, I rely for the most part on my analog EQs like the SPL PQ here, the API 5500, Pultec, or even the one on board on the SSL. But I still use plugins, of course, and it's always a combination of the two. This list includes both static and dynamic EQs. I will start from the clean ones, usually used for corrective work, which is usually the first stage of mastering, especially if I receive a mix for a client. And I'll work my way to the more colored sweetening EQs. Let's start with the first one, the Vice EQ-P1 by Softube. This might be the king of mastering equalizers in the sense of precise, clinical, transparent. It's both a static EQ and an amazing dynamic EQ for really precise work. Usually this one sits on my first slot when I receive a mix from a client to do the first corrective EQ. Very often the first one is an excess in the sub-range low end, and the filters of this one are absolutely amazing. This one starts at 13.80. If I go up, the next one is going to be 15.40, 17.30. These numbers might sound weird. Why 17.30 instead of 17? Because all the frequency choices on these EQ are based on exact notes. That's also why it sounds so musical and transparent. So the low filter is usually the first one if I have to correct or reshape that range. Very rarely I have to cut the top end because it's in excess. But what happens often is the mixes I sent have a couple of frequencies, maybe the low mids, maybe the harsh range that pop up here and there. So in this case, a dynamic EQ is what you need to correct it. And I usually do that kind of correction first before hitting my analog chain, okay? Let's try an example with this. So. All right, so this mix, for example, has this resonant note around 120, which is very common, okay? As you can see, the first thing that I do, I boost a little bit. In this case, I boosted a lot to make it obvious for the video, but don't boost more than 2 or 3 dB when you search for a resonant note, otherwise everything is gonna resonate, okay? With a fairly narrow Q, then when I spotted the frequency, I go into dynamic mode. Let's make this a little bigger. Turn down the boost, negative, let's say usually 1 to 2 dB. Sometimes it's 3, let's make it 2.5 to make it obvious here, and then set the threshold. Okay, in this case, we're already cleaning up a little bit this one. Another thing that I really like about this EQ is that you can go into advanced mode. For every band, you have attack, release, and ratio, which makes this, again, one of the most precise and tweakable dynamic EQ out there. In this case, I'm trying to tame the resonant bass note, and I'm gonna set the attack slow so it doesn't catch the transient of the kick, and it acts almost like an RMS compressor. Okay, is already better. I'm just doing a quick example for the sake of the video, but longer release time, especially in the low range, will give you a smoother result, a more transparent result. Quicker release time will give you a more aggressive sound, but sometimes it can cause distortion or artifacts. Not really with this one though. This one also has this large screen analyzer view, and of course it has mid-side and linear phase. Just like I said at the beginning, let's hear, for example, the difference between this mix, which is the blue track, and the mastered version, the pink one at the top. All right, let's go to the next one. Tokyo Don't Love Nova. This is insane that there is a free version, which is actually what I have installed here. I have the Gentleman Edition. I didn't install it because I just updated my Pro Tools, which is totally worth it. This is a dynamic EQ, is an amazing dynamic EQ. Differently from the Vase EQP1, I see this one and I tend to use this one for slightly broader strokes. It is very musical, still very tweakable, and it also has some very cool features that I'm going to show you in a second. But also because it's a parallel EQ, the top end boost is something that I really like about this one, regardless its dynamic capabilities. So let's hear this in action a little bit.
The world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still they exist. Like young boys and girls getting fucked by a priest. You say that I'm fat and I talk way too much.
So you can hear the top boost on this one is really nice. It has several features that I like. For example, bend solo, like many others.
The world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist.
Just in case you want to really fine-tune this section, for example, you want to make it dynamic.
The world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still they exist. Like young boys and girls getting fucked by a priest. You say that I'm fat and I talk way too much. You say
it has the gain reduction delta to hear only what the plugin is doing in that specific range.
the world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still
EQ gain, so when you boost or cut, it will auto-compensate.
the world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still they exist. Like young boys and
Which is really useful. Let's listen to the difference between mix and master for this one.
the world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still they exist. Like young boys and girls getting fucked by a priest. You say that I'm fat and I talk way too much. You say that I'm bitter and that I misjudge. The reason I'm fat and so out of luck is your mom feeding me burgers right after we fuck. North, south.
Okay, let's find another example for the Nova, which is really good at containing the top end harshness in a natural way.
I still think about you. I still got all the pictures that I took with you. I still have conversations with people about you. They ask me if I love you, and I say I do, I do. I miss your laugh, baby. I miss your vibe lately. I miss your smell, baby. Oh.
All right, let's say that frequency range. In this case, we make the Q a little steeper.
I still think about you. I still got all the pictures that I took with you. I still have conversations with people about you. They ask me if I love you, and I say I do, I do.
And we compensate for that cut with a little boost here. Actually, I'm gonna use a bell with a very wide bell and just a little bit of top end there.
I still think about you. I still got all the pictures that I took with you. I still have conversations with people about you. They ask me if I love you.
Just to give you an example, let's get to the next one. Nectar by Isotope, which has a mastering suite, everybody knows it, Ozone. And this one is more marketed as a mixing tool, which is a great mixing tool. It has a bunch of processors, compressor, saturation, and so on. But the reason because I like this one is the follow EQ. So when you open a bell, a filter, anything, you can set the dynamic EQ to be based on gain, like any other dynamic equalizer, or on frequency. If you set it on frequency, it will basically follow the resonant frequency around the spectrum automatically. Let me show that to you.
fix what we had. Cause baby, I still think about you. I still got all the pictures that I took with you. I still have conversations with people about you. They ask me if I love you, and I say I do, I do. I miss your laugh, baby, I miss.
In this case, this mix doesn't need any of that, but just to show you how the frequency follows the resonant note. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it's not a go-to, it's not like a foolproof kind of tool. You need to try and see if it works for a given song. Difference between this mix and the master?
About you. I still got all the pictures that I took with you. I still have conversations with people about you. They ask me if I love you, and I say I do, I do. I miss your laugh, baby. I miss your vibe lately. I miss your smell, baby. Oh, I miss your laugh, baby. I miss your vibe lately. I miss your smile, baby. Oh.
Okay, let's get to the next one. Tokyo No Lab makes amazing plugins, all of them pretty much. This one is one of my favorites for several reasons. If you study a little bit how this plugin was coded, how much attention Fabian put into making sure, especially if you go to the higher quality settings, every process in this plugin was distortion-free and paying attention specifically how the mid-side processing was handled inside this plugin. This is why I really like this plugin when I need to EQ in mid-side, which I don't do often. And actually everybody is under the impression that the mid-side EQ is a go-to for mastering, which is not. It's only to correct specific problems or to enhance sometimes, but it is not a free ride. It comes usually with artifacts. With this one, you are much, much safer than with many other. Equalizer is super musical. It has a couple of features that I really, really like, and I'm gonna show them to you. The first one, it's simple. It has 3 preset curves: brightness, hardness, and EL curve. This one can be set positive or negative. For example, brightness. All right, a linear tilt EQ just to rebalance really quick with one knob a mix. The second one is harshness, which is not, again, a foolproof, but it's very common that these areas are what causes harshness in mixes, so you can try and have a general idea. The third one is the EL curve, which is basically the smiley curve. It's weighted, as you can see. You can hear even full scale is very, very musical. Among the cool features that it has, you have a Smart Up here button, which opens the reference panel. So basically you can load any curve based on a reference mix, based on one of your old mixes, or in this case, I don't have any reference loaded, against pink noise, which I don't recommend. I know there's some people there that uses the pink noise to set levels or even mastering. I highly advise not to, but just to show you how it works, basically, we are gonna reference against pink noise. The plugin will learn the song. All right, let's cut it here for the sake of the video. And then operation, you can decide to match the reference, deresonate, or auto HP LPF. In this case, if I click that, you can see it matches against the pink noise and the filters are set 15 Hertz and 21. Pretty safe. And the interesting things about the filters is that you can see here, you have a low filter saturation and a high filter saturation. This is just a little bit of color, and it's again very, very subtle, but that's what you want in mastering. The other option in Smart Up, like I said, I don't advise you to reference pink noise, but just to see what it does, you can see for this mix, this is the curve that is giving us. And of course, you can also deresonate, and you can see it gives you another suggestion, let's put it this way. This is an amazing mastering EQ. Like I said before, the thing that I like it the most for is mid-side, because it handles it differently from all the other plugins, and I really like how it sounds. So just an example, you boost the sides on a specific band, on a given band from here. Let's set this one around here. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, I'm obviously exaggerating just to let you hear. This would be one of my first choices if I have to do mid-side EQ in mastering. Really quick, the difference between this mix and the master. All right, let's get to the next one. All the EQs so far were transparent aside from the saturation on the filters on the Slick EQ. This is the first colored EQ and I absolutely love this equalizer. Is Black Q V2 by Tone Empire. This emulates a tube EQ. You have 4 bands, a few controls, not much messing around. Is a sweetening EQ. The air band is amazing. The low end is amazing. You will hear it. But the 2 mid band and high band as well. It also has a really, really nice and subtle drive that you can totally use in mastering. 2 types, we're gonna hear it really quick. The air band is one of my favorite and you can push it really hard and it almost never sounds harsh. Let's try it on this mix. Listen to that low end. For me, is the perfect combination of retaining focus on it and yet giving that sweetening tube EQ style bottom end, like really big and solid. And the air band, you hear it, it's so very subtle. And the saturation is really nice. Let me just use that one on this mix. Okay, again, really subtle, which is what you want in mastering. Let me try the drive on another mix, for example. This one is Izzy T Nuclear that I mastered some time ago.
I gotta say something. Get out. I can't breathe. Get out. I can't sleep. Your love is turning nuclear. Your love is turning nuclear.
All right, so the type B is more aggressive. You can hear it. For this track, it actually works really well. Let me tweak the EQ a little bit on this one.
I gotta say something. Get out. I can't breathe. Get out. I can't sleep. Your love is turning nuclear. Your love is turning nuclear to me. Hey, yeah.
Okay, you can hear, depending on the material, the air band brings up so much detail. For example, in this mix, I really like Black Q V2 by Tone Empire. Let's listen to the with and without mastering difference for this one.
I gotta say something. Get out. I can't breathe. Get out. I can't sleep. Your love is turning nuclear. Your love is turning nuclear to me.
And let's get to the next one. Soft Tube Curve Bender. This is another amazing colored mastering EQ. This is the king of mid-range and presence. This is what I like this plugin in mastering. You can see it's somehow limited if you want, only not, because it has presence 1, presence 2, and treble. So all focused on the mid and high range to really shape it. But the color of it, it really brings the energy in the mid-range that you want. Whether you have an aggressive mix or not, it all depends how you use it. But sometimes it can be a little too rich if you already have a mid-range focused EQ, but it's an amazing EQ. It also has a bass knob, which is, again, really rich and colored. Let's try this one really quick. So you see a little goes a long way, and this is an already mid-rich mix. Okay, let's try really quick on another mix. All right, it really works well. That top end and that mid-range really bring songs to life. This is one of my mixes, one of my latest is Derosnec Towers. This one also good for mid-side for different reasons than the Sleek EQ. So let's try that really quick here. All right, and of course, if you have a somewhat dark mix, this is your ticket for sure. All right, as usual, I'm exaggerating to let you hear the character of the EQ. This is an amazing equalizer for mastering. Next one is one of the very, very few plugins that I like and use from this company, which is usually just pretty GUIs. And it's the SPL Pass EQ, which is not the plugin version of my SPL PQ. They are completely different. This is a passive EQ, the plugin. And it is somewhat limited. I like this one only for two bands, the top and the bottom. That's it. The mid bands, you have also mid cut, low mid cut, and mid boost and low mid boost. To me, are completely useless. They resonate, they sound artificial, they sound processed. The top end, when it works, it's pretty unique and it's actually useful. Let me show it to you.
Play too many games. Yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, but I'm still gonna tell you the same. Let's go. No hard feelings, you caught feelings and acted out. Went back, so now you think it's cool for you to have my chat.
Okay, so what you see me doing that right now is what I always do with this one. First of all, with the SPL EQ, both the Pass EQ and the PQ, actually this one has a proportional Q, which is different from anything else. But it's very important, the Q, and you can hear it immediately. You saw me doing this. You saw me using a pretty narrow Q to find the frequency. I'm going to exaggerate the boost so you can hear it.
Play too many games. Yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah. I know.
Okay, so you can hear what the EQ is catching, all right? If it's the very top end that you need, like the air band, or you need to catch like the vocals a little more and the snare a little more, you decide based on the track. Once you found it, then you back off the gain a little bit and you open the Q, and that's the beauty when you use this band here.
Play too many games. Yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, but I'm still gonna tell you the same. Let's go.
You hear when you open up the Q, the sound is a lot more natural and it feels kind of part of the material, just like it was that way, but with that shiny modern top end, which is in most cases what we want today. The other band that I really like is the low frequency, like I said. This one is particular because when I use this band, it's not because I want to add really audible low end, and because it's a passive EQ and the curves are really wide. Think of a Pultec on steroids almost. What it adds is just weight that you feel instead of hearing, okay? Let's try it.
Play too many games. Yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, but I'm still gonna tell you the same. Let's go. No
your hard feelings, you caught feelings and acted out. Went back, so now you think it's cool for you to have my child.
As you can hear, a little goes a long way. I don't think I've ever passed this mark. This would probably be the max I've ever used on any mix. Let's try this low boost on some other material.
It's a fist. If you think you can do this, it's a diss. The world is a fucking war, yet I'm a pacifist. There are things we can't control, but still they exist. Like young boys and girls getting fucked by a priest. You say that I'm fat and I talk way too much. You say that I'm bitter and that I misjudge. The reason.
Okay, so you hear it's just this really deep and solid low end. Watch it because sometimes it can smear the material a little bit and lose a little bit of focus, but these are the two bands, the only two bands that I like about this plugin. Let's get to the next one. Waves RS56. I feel like this plugin is so underrated. This is another passive EQ. Instead of being a modern version like we've seen before, this is a vintage emulation and it has a completely different character, different curves. I absolutely love it. It's so very musical. I love it for the top. I love actually all three bands. The top and the mids are my favorite. The low end, sometimes it works absolutely amazing, sometimes it doesn't, but that's also a good thing because you immediately know if for that track it works or not. It's got few knobs, few selections for the shape of the cue, and that's it. You're not gonna fidget around with this one too much.
I gotta say something. Get out. I can't breathe. Get out. I can't sleep. Your love is turning nuclear. Your love is turning nuclear to me. Hey, yeah.
All right, in this example works pretty well. That low end probably would not be my first pick, but it's not that it's wrong. It's just more a matter of taste for this mix. I would want something more focused. The only thing that I wish is that the mid band would go a little lower than 500, you know, maybe on the 200 range to remove. So low mid's there when it's needed, but still, this is a vintage EQ. The frequency choices are also part of the sound. Let's try it on another mix really quick. The top end here is really nice. One thing that I like about this one, you can see the selection for all the bands. You have basically a high shelf, then 3 cues, sharp, med, blunt, and low end. So this starts to be a little complicated if you're not familiar with Equalizer that much, but basically you can do the tricks that you do with a massive passive with this one. And if you ever worked with one or own one, you know what I'm talking about. By setting all these bands either in low shelf or high shelf and mix and match the two, you can do really cool tricks here. Right there, I gave you a little preset secret if you paid attention. RS56 by Waves. This is, again, in my opinion, very underrated and a great plugin for mastering and for mixing as well. Let's go to the next one. This is, again, the second plugin, 2 out of 4, basically, that I like from this company, is the Mag EQ. And again, we all know this is famous for the Air Band. It's probably what made the Air Band popular again, because the first hardware version of this EQ goes way back in the years, but they made it popular again when Mag started to do these hardware again, which is basically boosting above the 20K mark, you know, which would be the audible range for us, which gives this shiny top end. This is extremely different. If you compare this one to the SPL, for example, you can clearly hear the differences in sound and grit between the two. This one being a little more aggressive than the SPL, okay?
We fuck. North, south, who's the fucking best? East, coast, going to the west. I'll make you bounce your ass, this is my motherfucking quest. And you're gonna shake your titties from Hong Kong
Okay, again, the airband is pretty simple. The lower you go, the more audible range it grabs, and so you might want to adjust the gain. But it has a specific sound. With this one, I like basically all the bands. The sub is really good. The 40 is really good. The 2.5K, I don't think I've ever used it, but even the green and the red one can be useful for cutting sometimes, but not only.
We fuck north, south, who's the fucking best? East coast, going to the west. I'll make you bounce your ass, this is my motherfucking quest. And you're gonna shake your titties from Hong Kong to Bucharest. North, south, who's the fucking best? East coast, going to the west. I'll make you bounce your ass, this is my motherfucking.
And right there, don't think that the 650 is cut only, because it's, you know, the mid-range and all the bullshit mastering pseudo courses out there is like cut the low mid and do a couple of other nonsensical things. Low mids are usually your power, so first of all, don't cut by default anything ever. And sometimes the mid-range and the low mid-range are really your power, so it's just a matter of how much and how well you control it, okay? And I will do this series, my new top 10s, for also all the other processors, compressors, saturators, and special plugins for mastering. So stay tuned, click the notification bell so you can notified when we upload a new video. Let's try this really quick on another mix. Okay, so a very recognizable sound. The airband, again, sometimes works amazing, sometimes it doesn't fit the track, just like most other processors, but also really good, the other 4 bands. So, all right, let's get to the next and last one. Smart EQ3 by Sonable. I just updated to version 3, so I'm not familiar with what's new in the new version. I will actually review the new version on the channel pretty soon, but I've been using version 2 since the day that it came out, and it's the only automatic EQ, so to speak, that I actually use in my job. So whether it's single tracks, whether it's groups, this is a time saver many times to fix badly recorded tracks, specifically vocals, but it works on mastering as long as you know how to work it. Basically, if you're not familiar with this one, and like I said, I will review the new version soon, more than a classic EQ like we've seen before, this works into how the brain perceives sound. And so it's more like a psychoacoustic automatic EQ. It's not really automatic because it just suggests to you what is more pleasant for the human ear, and then from there you tweak it the way you want. It also has a bunch of references preloaded, and you can analyze any mix, any reference, and then load it on your mix and compare. For now, just to show you how it works, I will leave the EQ on universal, and I will show you, you just press this and let the plugin hear the mix. All right, and it gives me a curve, and you can adjust it here. You can adjust the filters here. Okay, as you can see, once you have your suggested curve, you can add nodes, you can modify the range, top and bottom, you can modify this any way you want. And it's actually a really, really great plugin, and one of the few algorithms, automatic algorithms, that I find that it actually works. And probably it's because it's based on psychoacoustic perception, you know, how our brain and ears perceive a mix. Let's try really quick on another one. It definitely sweetened this track. It got rid of that build up like in the low end and the low mids, and this was just with a quick pass on the universal reference. The new version has a bunch of new features, really useful. I just took a quick look. I will review it because, like I said, I've been using version 2 for a long time. Not only for mastering, like I said, it's great to fix badly recorded vocals, as in resonances, maybe in the room, maybe in the microphone, acoustic guitars, any acoustic instruments. I find this one is a quick fix to give you a much better sound to start with, you know, to then to mix. So this was the last one, was Smart EQ3. This is it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and share. All the links to these plugins are going to be in the info box down below, with some discounts for some of them. Click the join button down here if you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally. Become a member, access the library. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and see you next time.
Hands on my